Hello, all, and welcome to episode 25 of Enterprise Tech India Unplugged. Today, we have Kumaran, our favorite guest, who we are going to talk to him about low code and no code in the enterprise. How does it really impact us? And I hope all of you are subscribing to our YouTube channel and our audio podcast is available on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and of course we have an RSS feed. So if you don't know how to subscribe, just go to etiunplugged.in/subscribe. You should be able to find all the options available to you. And the best way to listen to us is just subscribe, and you'll get the latest episode. We do it at least once every 2 weeks until we have more energy to do it every week, and we have more audience interaction. We'll love to do it every week as well. So, Kumaran, what do you think about this whole movement towards low code and no code? Is it really relevant for IT managers to even think about to give such an option to their consumers of IT products?
Okay, so I play the CTO role of my company, right? And if you look at it, I'm pretty aggressive about it, right? And I would say that's one of my highest priority. And all my years in developing code, I have found out that the only way to have a bug-free code is to have no code. If there is no code, then there'll be no bugs. Okay, so I think it's very. I think most of the enterprises should strongly go after no code solutions, right? So one first aspect is quality, right? No code, no bugs, okay, which is what we want. Okay. The second one is that most of the functionality. I mean, I've been going gaga about Power BI in a lot of different things, right? And the reason for that is basically whatever I have done is a significant value addition to the end users. So there's something called a tiny grid bar chart report that I make. I think Venkat could actually see the effect of that affecting the dynamics of a group. Venkat also happens to be a user of my application. Okay. Now that whole thing I was able to provide to my end customer without using 1 minute of my development time. My development team was not involved at it. As an end user with a little bit of understanding of technology, I could deliver that value to my business. So actually the true business agility can be got with no code. So that's another key element, right? So the business themselves can do it. So I think all enterprises should kind of look at that. And yesterday I was looking at another interesting thing. A lot of organizations use Slack, and Slack has come up with something like called a Slack workflow builder. So, okay, so it's kind of probably, I think there is a lot of pattern that's emerging. Flow and Power Apps on the Microsoft environment kind of offers you that same thing where you have a simple messaging or a chat, but that kind of drives business, and it is getting the business context into any communication that happens. So rather than telling, click on this link, go to this report, see the detail why the sales is low, and then message me, right? Now what happens is that report pops up in your Teams or Slack channel. Now, if a sales report is down, that pops up as a message on the Slack channel itself. And as a guy who's sitting in sales, he can just reply to it and say, why is area 1 doing bad? No more going to 3 different applications. And this is happening because of the no code features that's given. Okay. Now, if I find that when the sales is low, I need to raise a trouble ticket to handle a certain issue. Now, classically, if I do it 3 times, the 4th time as an end user, now I have the capability to automate that itself. To say, if this report region A has 3 value, raise a ticket into the ticketing system. I can automate it as a part of this. Okay.
Right.
So So I think I would say it is more mandatory and prudent to go that path. Maybe Venkat, Nishant, Sidma, what is your experiences with no code solutions? You could share that.
Okay, so so recently we also have come up with in the Slack platform itself. Even I have created a custom bot with a minimal code effort. So in that bot, and you can get what kind of report just by chatting. If you give them the help, then it will give what are the report is available. If you just give the number 1, 2, 3, then you'll get the report on the spot. This kind of infrastructure we just developed in a half an hour of time, not more than that. So
Okay.
I certainly feel that so no code or low code is essential for every enterprise, which can be improve the productivity as well as you can satisfy your stakeholders very easily.
And this
Whatever
is
they
for
want.
which? Was it for your sales team or operations team?
It is for stakeholders, it's not only so right now I've implemented only for CXO's level.
Okay.
It can be extended to the any team, based on their requirement. Again, with a minimal effort.
Okay.
So which I will be doing eventually in the coming weeks.
Right. So I think that's a very, very interesting aspect of look, just doing it very quickly. So, Kumaran, you were saying something. I interrupted you.
No, I lost my train of thought.
Okay. Yeah. So just to raise some points about this whole low code, no code thing. So I'm just thinking from the technical perspective or from the IT team's perspective, does it create any sort of extra hand holding, extra, one is obviously it reduces friction for the productivity, right? You can be very productive very quickly. So that is a given. But does it create some more work for the IT teams? Does it create something which they cannot handle? Is there a bad thing? Is it a bad thing for IT teams?
Okay, so I would answer one part of the question, and then I have an interesting question for Nishant and Sidhu. Okay, so for me, I think this kind of thing actually, from a person who has to maintain an IT infrastructure, right? This is actually a little more, and typically when we talk about low code or no code, that is kind of implicitly, it means some cloud service, which means my maintenance and operation and patching has come down significantly. For example, in DigitalOcean, I kind of recently said we were, in fact, we were using something called Forge. Okay, so Forge for deploying patching servers. So we have a infrastructure as a service VM, and then we were using that, and we had to write some scripts, right? Simple scripts which will do a pull from GitHub, do some patch, and run that. Now, what DigitalOcean has done is they have built a similar feature with their offering itself. So which means that even that 50 lines of code which I had to write, I need not write that anymore. And previously somebody had to do an SSH into that machine to do that work. Now even that is not needed. Now the advantage is, now I can manage this infrastructure without having to do an SSH or know those specific scripts. So basically that whole part, right? What is the branch I want to pick up from? What would be my environment variables? All that I can do it without writing any lines of code. So from a management perspective, it's made my life easier. So it's a kind of a quasi business user, right? Can actually manage the whole thing. He doesn't need IT guys anymore. Okay. Now that takes it to an interesting thing, right? Like let's say kind of Nishant and Sidharma here, who are like service providers. What kind of pressure does it put on you how is it that you're going to handle the no code world? What are your thoughts around that?
Yes, Siddhama, go ahead if you want to say.
Yeah. So, Kumaran, basically, I have quite a lot of experience working on ESB middleware, both IBM Stack, MuleSoft, and others. And yes, when you say low code, yes, these are the ones. Instead of writing, pages of Java code, creating objects and whatnot, and then kind of create a API and all of that. It's a very simple process doing that. It's more of a configuration management, I would say. Very little code, very low code, and I would not say no code, but yes, definitely low code. That's what we did in most of the middlewares. But the configuration aspect definitely comes into picture, right? There's effort that goes into configuring that, understanding the aspects of it, and still, although we say it's 4x faster, 6x or 10x faster to the market, but still there is a lot of other things that come into picture wherein effort is required to, deliver that solution. So I think the low code, no code is still in the transition phase. There's still a lot that needs to be still done where probably, I spell out my solution and probably, a AI tool or something would listen to it and kind of churn out a basic solution on which I can go ahead and do some kind of configuration and build it, and I'm done and dusted maybe in a day or two. Okay. I think still as the libraries and as the frameworks mature, I think we are moving more towards those. But when you say low code, no code, right now, pretty much I worked on most of those kind of tools and applications only. Even the Salesforce Lightning, they're giving new features for this low code. But still, there's a lot of learning curve that the developer needs to undergo to understand how those features work and then kind of roll that out. So I think there's still a learning curve that's involved. So I think this is just a middle step to what is going to evolve next. So I think we're still, en road to that. I don't know if I'm being very, what is that, imaginative about it, but then that's what I think.
Okay.
Because it has not made our life easy in any way. I mean, still we are.
So it's interesting. I think I have played with two things in that integration space, right? For that scenario. Okay. One is Zapier and the other is Microsoft Flows. So, but then what happens?
Now it's called Power Automate. It's called Power Automate now.
Now it's called Power Automate. Okay. But I think one thing which Siddhama says is kind of true, right? I think what happens is for applications which are workloads which are cloud native, right? I don't know. All these terminologies are very confusing. Somebody else calls it cloud native, means actually on-prem kind of thing. So I'm telling you, true blood cloud service, PaaS service or a SaaS service. Then these integration platforms are making it easier. For example, in one corporate wanted a requirement where I could actually patch in messages from my application into a Teams channel and a Yammer channel inside that organization in a period of 2 hours, right? And I think if not for, let's say, and this was using Zapier. But in a conventional sense, it would have taken me a lot more time to do. And here I just had to do OAuth to connect and do it. But I think in a true enterprise scenario, not many enterprise solutions are already offering this kind of a discover and let's call it discover and connect and publish kind of a thing, right? Siddhama, I guess that's the challenge that you would see, right? Let's take a classical SAP or a ERP solution or a custom solution. They are not, those interfaces are not auto discoverable at this moment in an enterprise. And that's where the work happens.
No, pretty much. If you look at, no, it's not really so. I think, for example, if I take MuleSoft as an example, you have this API manager and Exchange where all these APIs and services are exposed. So they're pretty much open and available for others to discover them and reuse them at an enterprise level. And if you're exposing it outside the enterprise also, they can still be leveraged. So pretty much it's a very good tool where this kind of, what do you say, exchange happens. But the challenge that I see is still these products still need to evolve. When you say low code, no code, right? That still needs to evolve. That is pretty much taking a lot of effort from from developers and architects, trying to design them, trying to get them in shape. There's still a lot of, you're still designing them, you're still writing that. You still need to know what you need to drag and drop and configure, and maybe there's a little bit of code that you need to fit in. I would want something, something that's more of a, which is, which kind of reduces your configuration effort as well.
Okay. So I guess just to understand what you're talking about, right? Like I'll take an example of Power BI, which I've been working quite extensively, and I've done BI kind of projects before. So when you build a data warehouse or a data mart, and I would have to do the mapping, do the ETL, and then get it into a denormalized form, connect each of them and make stuff. But what Power BI has evolved is when I get in three kind of data sets together, it intelligently figures out more than 70 to 80% of the relationship between them. But in your case, you're telling that work is still left, or that lifting has to be done by the team. Is that an
Yes,
equivalent in
it's
your world?
almost like a 2 weeks sprint, or maybe a 3 week sprint is definitely required, and then you go into the testing phase and then you kind of deploy it. It still goes through all of that. It's not like very quick. It's not like,
Uh,
you do
in
it and
ours, it's not like in ours kind of a thing. And
yeah, and I think you can do the same thing in Java. You have a good Java developer, I can still
yes,
put it in the Java. I don't see a reason why I would want to invest on a product like that, which is so high on licensing and all that. Why not use something that's more of open source? And that's happening as well. I've seen those cases also where the customer says, after using it and pretty much, rolling out multiple integration frameworks and everything for them, and after a year or two they come back and say, look, this licensing is very heavy for us, migrate all of this to something that's open source and which is low cost and all of that. I mean, the effort still goes in, and there are those field factors. So I think this is still evolving. I mean, the industry is still evolving. I'm sure there'll be something much better that will come up.
that's
And
actually an interesting perspective that you just got out. You just said when we kind of go for that low code, no code solution, right? There is a impact of licensing and a recurring cost, which would be a factor for enterprises compared to writing code.
in
I
the
think
long
there's a
run,
threshold.
yeah, in
I
the
think there's
long
a
run,
threshold.
yes, yeah.
I think there's a threshold beyond which low code, no code stops making sense, right? So I think there is some amount of volume we have to think about. That if there is like 10 users of some report, it may be better to go with low code, no code kind of a solution where it says, okay, 10 people need to do this. I can just quickly churn it out. This will be used like once every week, not a big deal. But if the report has to be probably generated every 2 hours and is used by 10,000 people, and probably there low code, no code does not make sense. What do you think, Kumar?
I think that's true. There's also another use case. Let me. I've been talking gaga about Power BI, right? Now let me put the other aspect to it. Now, one of the constraints of Power BI is the consumers needs to have a Power BI Pro license. So whatever reports that I have done can only be used by my company because we have license for that. Now, if I want a vendor to use it or my customers to use it, either they should have a Power BI Pro license or I need to buy one and give it to them. So that's another kind of constraint that comes up when we go for the solution. So if I had a custom implementation, right, which is so, and typically when we say no code, that would also mean that in some way it will be a managed service. Right. Usually it ends up like that. Okay, and that means that licensing aspect of which, it kind of struck me when Siddharma brought up the long-term licensing effect. And probably currently it's not a problem, but let's say I would have a challenge if I say that I have to expose whatever capabilities which I've done with no code to my end customers as well. I think then it gets pretty interesting on how we would manage this.
Right.
Yeah, actually,
Go ahead, Venkat.
Yeah. Actually, that is the one of the like main reason why we haven't gone with the Power BI for our BFSA dashboard. Right? You ask me why you are not using Power BI for a BFSA dashboard. For a BFSA dashboard is not only for internal use, it is also should be shared with our banking customers. So it is in the public. It is not in the within the company. So that is the main reason. And as you said, it involves the recurring cost, which we can be in the long term. It's a 1 year or 2 year premium cost. So if we invest at least two resources for 1 month, we can able to develop the same kind of dashboard in our company, which after that there is no cost involved in that, right? So that is one of the reason, we developed internally.
So just curious on that front, Venkat,
Yes, good.
that isn't there another, I mean, like you had used a combination of Angular JS and things to build it, right? Isn't there a reporting tool or a, maybe like as Siddharth was telling, not a no-code solution, but a low-code reporting engine or services? Did you consider that?
See, for reporting, graphs we use D3 libraries, so such that, and for a mapping we are using the Lightbox. So these are the two main components involved in this reporting tool. Other
Okay.
than that, it is pretty straightforward.
Nishant, do you have any thoughts around low-code, no-code? What's been your experience?
Yeah, the low code, no code, in my view, basically it is basically a culture. So, like, uh, it has two perspective. From a business value, I completely agree that it has a very huge business value. If we go for a low code, no code solution, especially the what Deepak said, like we should have a threshold there. Like, if we have a low threshold, what I was trying to say is like basically the low code, no code solution is a main cultural thing, and I think that is there in all area in the software development cycle. If we really look at this industry, it is there in all area, because just simply take a case of a website development. If we really go for a website development, assume if 15 years ago or 10 years ago, we have to create a website, start from writing HTML code and CSS code.
Right.
Now it's just in a matter of minutes or hours, we can expose a website to the public.
Right. Right.
So the thing is like in everywhere, in the framework, the infrastructure, deployment things, DevOps thing, everywhere the low code solutions there. So that's what I mentioned to Kumaran. Like from a business point of view, it has huge value.
Right.
But from a developer or an architectural point of view, if you really look at from a futuristic point of view, it's a bit scary. Like finally, we all still think like the writing code is our bread and butter.
Right.
But if so, the industry or the whole industry is changing in a way like writing code is not a matter. Orchestration is the matter. Like how we orchestrate the components, the available things, and to build a new solution. That matters now. So I think we have to change our thought process, our skill from engineering skills in a way to like how to utilize existing solutions and to compose like the role the music orchestrator, the music composer do. What he do is like just taking the tunes from each of the instruments and compose a different, they're delivering that song. That is a product there, right?
Right. Right.
The
I think
similar
there's a very interesting, very interesting perspective Nishant has brought up, which is that it is already there, it is happening, and some of the things we notice, some of the things we don't notice, right? And especially the example which he gave about website building, right? Today you have Bootstrap, you have all these kinds of things. Which says you just say, okay, give me a table, give me a full Carousel, all those kinds of things are sort of ready-made, available right out of the box. So this actually is bringing another perspective of how we as IT people have been always thinking that we have to invent everything. This is that whole concept of, if I did not invent it, I don't know how it works, I cannot control it, right? So
Deepak, I have a different perspective to this.
Yes, Gautam,
see, what you're saying is, you're talking more from a service industry, right? But I see
Gautam is all full charged
happening.
after a breakfast.
No, I'm saying this entire, there is a complete shift from a service industry to a product industry now, right? Because low code, no code is just a front end thing, whereas you, at the back end, you're still writing code to get the product done, right?
Somebody else is doing it, just not you.
No, exactly. Somebody else is doing it, but somebody else can be you, right? Because basically, I'm trying to say is maybe the shift from for a developer is happening from a service industry to a product industry, wherein you are going into the product mode rather than staying in the service mode, right? So that's what I'm saying. So I still feel that yes, there is still a lot of hopes for the developers out there in the market, because you still have to deliver those no code, low code solution, which is going to be even more challenging.
Yes. So I think, right. So from the enterprise perspective, there are two things. One is the people who are producing that whole low code, no code environments, right? What Gautam said, which is of course that requires same effort which you used to require building applications, is the same process, right? They might be newer technologies, but the consumer side actually is where the revolution is happening, right? Which is what we are looking at from consumers in the enterprise. From the production side, I would say yes, we are probably in the same place. We still have to do all the stuff, right? Maybe some assistance has come in terms of things like Bootstrap and all, where they are making, at least producing some of the things much faster. Things which you have to do by script now are available as SaaS services, right? You have Azure DevOps, you have Jenkins that is available as a service, right? So there's so many solutions available which you do not have to do it yourself, right? So now they're available as a service. Yes, Kumar.
I think one interesting thing I think it's not recent actually. I think it's been there for quite 3-4 years now, and it's picking up steam, is what is called citizen developers. Now, and I see this happening a lot especially in the BPO or the business processing. And another term for no code, low code is RPA, right? So that's a manifestation of this concept. And the idea which those businesses are looking at is conventionally the folks on the BPO team, the functional people who are providing the services. It starts all the way from a program manager to a team lead. A team lead typically gets of one function, like let's say it's credit card processing, approval alone. Okay, so there'll be one team doing that. Classically, those things were like, let's say they had to look up across 3 different applications, okay, and integrate it. So this requirement would go to the IT team. They would develop a screen which will tie up these 3 applications together. Now what they are trying to do is basically that connection between the 3 applications, which was conventionally in a back-end scenario, right? They're trying to do it within the front end. So in a way, it's kind of directly affects the area where Sidharma works in, which is your enterprise integration space. So they're saying, you know what, why do I need to integrate the applications at the back end? In the front end itself, I will integrate. I want data coming from this application going there. I will do it in the front end instead of manually picking it and pasting it. So that's one change that is enterprises are looking at over there. The second one is a lot more interesting case, where it kind of goes in with, it's a kind of same pattern, right? When a lot of automation comes, there is this fear that BPO guys will lose jobs. Okay, which is similar to what we are talking about. If there is a lot of low code coming in or no code coming in, developers, the pie size will come down. You will have specialist developers You won't have a developer to sit and write that CRUD screen, right? Data input, edit, modify. I don't think we need that developers.
Right.
So, so similarly, if you take RPA, copy paste from this screen to that screen, move it into an Excel, format it, and I have 10 BPO guys doing that job. Now with RPA, that will replace that. With a no code, it will replace this developer. But there's an interesting pattern. The BPO normal guys are now, companies want to enable them to become something like a entry level developer. Okay, so they are called citizen developers. So a typical BPO guy in yesterday's, let's say last generation, will be a citizen developer in the new generation. And a person who can write a no code, right? It is configuring and doing that thing. He is what we call as a citizen developer. Now they have an advantage over the developers. They understand business.
Right.
They understand business terminologies. So for example, if something like this is a claim, this is an exception, this is an append that is happening. So those guys know what that is. The developer has got no clue.
Right. Right.
So I think that's another play that organizations are working towards, where they are trying to move business users to become, in double quotes, developers. Developers who can develop solutions without writing code.
Right. Right. I think that's I think a good point to end our discussion on, actually, because so we discussed, one is, just to summarize, we discussed various things which have now become available, right, from people consumer side of the no code low code business, and also the production side. There is an opportunity there. But the key point which has been brought up is, now enterprises want these people to be developers, right? The citizen developers, right? And the amount of friction which is being reduced by these low code no code solutions being available is what is going to enable these new breed of citizen developers to come in. So I think that's a good point to end our discussion on. And of course, we can keep on going on this discussion. And so thanks to Siddhima, who is an architect with Capgemini, and Gautam, who is an architect with Raymonds, and Venkat, who's the CTO for Aquatech. So thank you all for your contribution, and see you next time.